it is often not realized how much we simply do not think to question in our lives, or the darker meanings that can go unnoticed because of it. A prime example of this is what I will try to illustrate with the dark side of a popular fairy tale in The Long Con by Megan R. Engelhardt. I knew the girl would never give up her child. I knew before I asked. That is the sort of deal that you only make if you're young and naive and facing execution. And the idea of a child is so very far away that it's an easy thing to give up. But I asked her anyway, knowing she would say yes and then no later. How she wept when I came to collect, all the tears that fell over that poor sweet babe. How she begged and pleaded that I spare him, that I release him from her promise. I thought the guessing game was a nice touch. It kept her busy for a few days and gave her hope. And all the while, I was working. I baked and cleaned and made sure the Queen's messenger overheard me sing the naming song in the deep woods. She was so proud when she guessed that name, the triumph in her voice, the relief in her eyes. I put on a show for her and she ate it like it was porridge that was just the right temperature. How? I screamed. How did you guess that name? I stomped and ripped and shouted. I believe there was spittle, and I am certain my face turned red. And then I left. I went to my clean cottage that smelled of fresh bread, and I waited. The child was not yet walking by the time the whole kingdom knew of the twisted man in the deep woods and the clever queen who outsmarted him. The young princeling heard the story at his mother's knee and saw daily the huge rent in the floor where I had stomped my foot in rage. Servants and peasants would watch him pass and whisper about the boy who had been saved. At first, it was enough that the story was about him, and it ended happily. He enjoyed the attention, as any child would. He would demand to hear the story, and when his mother reached the end of the guessing game, the young prince would cry out, "Rumpelstiltskin!" with her. I heard them in my forest home and smiled, because soon he began to wonder. "Why, Mama?" he asked. "Why did a strange little man want me?" And the queen had no answer. The older he grew, the more it ate at him. Why had I asked for it? I could have had treasure, powers, half the kingdom had I desired it. Why had I wanted the baby? The princeling was a handsome enough child, but his curiosity kept him inside, scouring ancient and dark tomes when he should have been learning swordplay and horsemanship. The riddle of his importance drove him to long conferences with grizzled soothsayers and dreary mystics and old witches who reeked of the potions they brewed. I believe he would have been a good king had not the mystery ground at him until he was as gnarled in mind and body as the ancients he communed with daily. He was passed over when his father chose an heir. But by then he didn't care, not the curious young prince. 20 years had gone by, and he had no more answers than when he was a bright-eyed babe. So he put his mind to a new pursuit, finding me. He rode away one fogging gray morning, and his mother wept, for she knew she would never see him again. I think she finally realized the truth. I had taken her child after all. He found me. I let him. He stood in my little cottage, as twisted and ugly as I, dripping swamp water on my floor, and he asked his question. Why? Consider this your first lesson, I said. Any common thug can take what they want. The pleasure is in getting the prey to come to you. His eyes gleamed as he saw in my words the promise of power, of knowledge, of the joy of the chase, and I had him. He was mine. Any cut-rate sorcerer can make beauty from dross. The real magic stood before me. A prince become a monster gold spun down to straw.
Our next group just a moment to get themselves set up here. See, aren't you glad there's this fantastic poster to watch while they're doing this? Guacapella, our vocal jazz group. It's a funny story where we got the name, but I'm not going to tell it to you now. You'll have to find one of them and ask them, and then they can tell you the funny story, because I like being mean like that. So this is Guacapella. We threw this group together basically for the month of April for 4 performances. This is number 3. They do another one tomorrow at the Surf Ballroom. There's a vocal jazz event that happens there all day, and so we're going to go participate in that and work with the Jazztronauts, vocal jazz group out of, it's not fun, the Jazztronauts, out of Minneapolis. And so they're going to come and do a clinic with them, and they're going to perform these 2 pieces. And so, yeah, we had about, like I said, the month of April to put this together. So I hope you enjoy Guacapella.
Dum 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 be dooby dum 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 be dooby dum 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 be dooby dum wah 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 dum 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 be dooby dum 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 be dooby dum 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 be dooby dum wah 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 wah. Well, don't love me, darling. Come and go with me, don't send me way beyond the city. I need you, darling, so come go with me. Dum, 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 me do me, come, come, dum, come into me, honey, tell me, darling, we will never hide. I need you, darling, so come go with me. Whoa, 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 whoa. Well, you never, 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 never. Never say you'll never leave me. Oh, I love you. Never say you'll never, yes, you'll never. You never give me a chance. Wop, wop. Dum, come, dum, come, dum, come and dum, me, dum, we will never go. I need you, darling, so come go with me. Wah, 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 wah. Dooby, shooby, dooba, dooby, shooby, dooba. You never give me a chance. Wop, wop. Dum, come, 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 dum, come into me. Tell me, darling, we will never hide. I need you, darling, so come on, baby. Come on, baby. Come on, baby. Come on, baby. Whoa, 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 whoa. was chasing after the impossible dream. I never understood why people had to be mean. I just pretend that everything is gonna be fine. You may as well if not, you'll end up losing your mind. 'Cause if you can't have what you want, 'cause if you can't have what you want, 'cause if you can't have what you want, then like what you got, you got, you got, you got. You may as well be happy and just like what you got.
All right, can I get senior choir members to come up on stage really quick? I'm just going to take a few minutes to recognize our senior choir members. I promise I'm not going to get emotional, and I'm not going to talk for an hour. No, I promise. I heard that, Mr. Slater. I know it was you. So the reason I know I'm not going to get emotional is because I'm going to tell them later all of the wonderful things about themselves, because I know that if I do it in front of you, it's going to be really terrible. So I just am having to like emotionally disconnect right now. So I love these kids, every single one of them. I love all those kids too, but I've known them longer, so I love them more. I've had most of them, all 4 years in choir, in some regards or others. Just a few that are a little bit newer than others, but I've gotten to know them all very, very well, and we have a lot of fun together, and they've developed into these really amazing leaders within the group and in just their regular everyday lives as well. And I have really, truly enjoyed working with each and every one of you, and I am incredibly sad that I won't get to work with you anymore after this. But thank goodness for Facebook, because you can keep in touch, and I will stalk you every so often so that I know what's going on in your lives if you don't send me emails regularly. Yes, it sounds a little creepy, but it's just because I can. All right, so I'll just announce them, and I have a little bit. Lydia Aberg. We don't know. Cheyenne Schaefer. Like, hello. Cedric Harris. Leah Jones. Callie Maxwell. Madeline Slater. Emily Cook. Johnny Sinatra. Nathan Tebow. And Stuart E. So if we could just get a round of applause for
say thank you to Mrs. Jacobson and Mrs. Snyder for just being good women in our lives and just for being leaders of our Mrs. Snyders. They're just really awesome at everything they do. And they put a lot of time in for us. So we just wanted to say thank you.
See, I didn't talk too long or cry.
That's what we wanted, though.
I'm on a really tight schedule tonight. I had to contain it.
Introduce myself. How do I do this?
Fix your microphone and then introduce yourself.
Okay.
Push it back, sorry. Yeah.
My name is Kara Brichka. I'm a senior, and I'll be doing a public address. Over the last 20 years, technology has replaced a lot of things in our lives. It's kind of become an idolized item in our lives. But then where does God fit into all of this? Has technology become our God? In the Camerlando speech by Dan Brown, it expounds upon what can happen when God loses the center of attention in our lives. Medicine, electronic communication, space travel, genetic manipulation. These are the miracles of which we now tell our children. These are the miracles we herald as proof that science will bring us the answers. The ancient stories of immaculate conception, burning bushes, and parting seas are no longer relevant. God has become obsolete. Science has won the battle. We concede. But science's victories has cost every one of us. Science may have alleviated the miseries of disease and drudgery, and provided an array of gadgetry for entertainment and convenience, but it has left us in a world without wonder. The complexities of the universe have been shredded into mathematical equations. Even our self-worth as human beings has been destroyed. Science proclaims that planet Earth and its inhabitants are a meaningless speck in the grand scheme. Even the technology that promises to unite us divides us. Each of us is electronically connected to the globe, and yet we feel utterly alone. We are bombarded with violence, division, fracture, and betrayal. Skepticism has become a virtue. Cynicism and demands for proof has become an enlightened thought. Is it any wonder that humans now feel more depressed and defeated than they have at any point in human history? Does science hold anything sacred? Science looks for answers by probing our unborn fetuses. Science even presumes to rearrange our own DNA. It shatters God's world into smaller and smaller pieces in quest of meaning, and all it finds is more questions. The ancient war between science and religion is over. You have won. But you have not won fairly. You have not won by providing answers. You have won by so radically reorienting our society that religion cannot keep up. Mankind took thousands of years to progress from the wheel to the car. Yet, only decades from the car into space, scientific progress is now measured in weeks. As religion is left behind, people find themselves in a spiritual void and cry out for meaning. Science, you say, will save us. Science, I say, has destroyed us. Since the days of Galileo, the church has tried to slow the relentless march of science, sometimes with misguided means, but always with benevolent intention. Even so, the temptations are too great for man to resist. I warn you, look around yourselves. The promises of science have not been kept. Promises of simplicity and efficiency have bred nothing but chaos and pollution. We are a fractured and frantic species, moving down a path of destruction. Who is this God? Science. Who is the God that offers his people power, but no moral framework of how to use that power? What kind of God gives a child fire, but does not warn that child of its danger? The language of science comes with no signpost about good and bad. A science textbook will tell you how to create a nuclear reaction, and yet it contains not one chapter telling you if it is a good or bad idea. To science, I say this: the church is tired. We are exhausted from trying to be your signpost. Our resources are drying up for being the voice of reason as you plow blindly on in your quest for smaller chips and larger profits. We ask not why you will not govern yourselves, but how can you? Your world moves so fast that if you were to stop, even for an instant, to consider the moral implications of your actions, someone more efficient will whip past you in a blur so you move on. You proliferate weapons of mass destruction, but it is the Pope who travels the world beseeching leaders to use restraint. You clone living creatures, but it is the church who reminds us to consider the moral implications of these actions. You encourage us to interact on phones, video screens, and computers, but it is the church who opens its doors and reminds us to commune in person, as we were meant to do. You even murder unborn babies in the name of research that'll save lives. Again, it is the church who points out the fallacy of this reasoning. And all the while, you proclaim the church is ignorant. But who is more ignorant? The man who cannot define lightning, or the man who cannot respect its awesome power? The church is reaching out to you, but the more we reach, the more you push us away. Show me proof there is God, you say. I say, use your telescopes and look to the heavens and tell me how there cannot be a God. Do you really not see God in your science? How can you miss him? You proclaim that even the slightest change in the force of gravity or the weight of an atom would have rendered our universe a lifeless mist, rather than our magnificent sea of heavenly bodies. And yet you fail to see God's hand in this? Have we really become so spiritually bankrupt that we would rather believe in mathematical impossibility than in a power greater than us? Whether or not you believe in God, you must believe this. When we as a species abandon our trust in the power greater than us, we abandon our sense of accountability. Faith. All faiths are admonitions that there is something we cannot understand, something to which we are accountable. With faith, we are accountable to each other and to ourselves and to a higher truth. Religion is flawed, but only because man is flawed. If the outside world could see this church as I do, beyond the ritual of these walls, they would see a brotherhood of imperfect, simple souls, wanting only to be a voice of compassion in this world that is simply spinning out of control.
Don't they look lovely?
You know those awkward moments in life where you don't think you'll ever make it out alive? No, I'm not talking about passing gas in an elevator. Or getting that cheap spray tan that ruined your senior prom. I'm talking about real-life experiences that seem almost inescapable. With my piece, The Endless Streetcar Ride into the Night, by Gene Shepard, a young boy experiences exactly that. There are times in a man's life when unexpectedly the cosmic searchlight of truth shines full upon them. Those moments happen when we are least able to fend them off. I caught the first one full in the face when I was just 14. One day, my best friend Schwartz proceeded to outline his plan.
Helen's old man won't let me take her on a date on Saturday night unless I get a date for her girlfriend. A double date. The old kook figures, I guess, that if there are 4 of us, there won't be no Bucky business. Well, how about it? Do you want to go on a blind date with this chick?
Well, for years, I've had this principle. Absolutely no blind dates. I was a man of perception and taste. And life was short. But Schwartz is my friend. I would do it for Schwartz. I will never forget this particular Saturday for as long as I live. That night, I set out wearing my magnificent electric blue sports coat, whose shoulders were so wide I had troubles getting through an ordinary door. My pleated gray flannel slacks began just below my breastbone and did indeed chafe my armpits. I belted, cascading down, finally grasped my ankles in a vice-like grip. Her name was Junie Jo Prewitt. I won't forget it quickly, although she has, in no doubt, forgotten mine. I walked down the dark street. Her house stood back from the street even further than the others. The first faint touch of nervousness filtered through the marrow of my skull bone as I knocked on the screen-enclosed porch. No answer. I found a doorbell buried in the sash. I pressed it, and far up from the bowels of the house, I heard 2 chimes. Bing bong! The door opened, and there stood a real, genuine, gold-plated father. Hot belly, underwear shirt, suspenders, and all. Well, he asked. I couldn't remember her name. I'm here to pick up some girl. He turned back to the house and he hollered, Junie Jo, some kid's here for ya. I instantly began to sweat. I heard someone coming down the stairs. First those feet, and then those legs. She was magnificent. The greatest looking girl I've ever seen in my entire life. 5 minutes later, we are sitting in the streetcar, heading towards the bowling alley. I am sitting next to the most fantastic creation in the feminine department known to Western man. I, naturally being a trained gentleman, sat on the aisle to protect her from candy wrappers, cigar butts, and such. Directly ahead of me, also on the aisle, sat Schwartz, with his arm already flung an affectionate, death-like grip around Helen's neck. I started working my famous charm on her. I told her that time that my Uncle Carl lost his false teeth down the air shaft, and when my brother wet his pants when he saw a snake. Still nothing. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see that she had a coat collar turned up, hiding most of her face. Casually, I inched my right arm over the back of the seat, behind her shoulders. She leaned forward, unbuttoning my arm, and it stayed like that. As nonchalantly as I could, I retrieved it, found a giant crimp in my right shoulder blade. Above us, a line of car cars looked down on the empty streetcar. One was speaking to me, and to me alone. Do you offend? Do I see this thing coming down the aisle directly towards me. It's this blinding, fantastic, brilliant screaming light. And I see it all now. I am the blind date! Me! I'm suddenly getting fatter and more itchy. My gray tie is 2 feet wide, hanging down to the floor like some crinkly tinfoil noose. And it is all clear to me in the searing, white truth. I am the blind date! They're being nice to me. She is the one who is out on the blind date!